In this video, we are looking at the Straight Talk LG Premier LTE. This is an all-new phone from Straight Talk, and it retails for $129.99. Note that it is a CDMA Verizon phone, so of course you will need Verizon to actually activate this in your area, and of course you'll need LTE coverage to take take advantage of the LTE speeds. Now, the main features on this phone are a 5.3-inch screen measured horizontally. It does come with a fairly new Android version in 5.1. It has a 1.2 quad-core processor. And what I would say is really the thing that makes this phone stand out is the fact that the cameras are fairly high resolution. The front camera is 5 megapixels. And the rear camera is 8 megapixels. So we'll go ahead and measure the screen here. As I said, it is 5.3 inches measured diagonally. As you see there, pretty much more or less. So it is fairly large. Do note that it is almost 6 inches in height. So it's 5 3/4. And the width is right at about 3 inches or so. Now that said, it is very slim. It's right at around 0.3 inches. So it's basically somewhere between 1/4 and 1/2 inch in thickness, which is very slim for a phone at this price range, which is one of the things that I actually like about this. Now, as far as the design goes, this phone has some pretty neat or cool little features for a phone at at this price point. The main thing, like the previous batch of LGs that Straight Talk offered, this one has the volume and power button on the rear. So that's the power button there. That's the volume. So there aren't any buttons anywhere on the side or the top of this phone. Now, another thing that I like that you'll notice is that the screen is almost edge to edge, at least on the left and the right. There's a little bit more than 1/8 of an inch spacing between here, so it really does go almost all the way from left to right. Now at the top we do still have the typical 1/2 inch spacing that you find on most of these phones. And another thing to note is that this phone does have the floating Android buttons, so you're not going to have the physical touch buttons here at the bottom. Now, another thing I like about the screen, and it might be hard to see on camera, but the screen really covers up the entire face of the phone, and there's a nice rounded kind of beveled edge around the screen. Now the screen is all plastic, but the way that it feels and the actual quality of it feels very much like glass, and also this kind of beveled design makes it look very much like glass. Other than that, there's not a whole lot of trim on this. It just has 2 strips on either side, as you can see, and it's kind of like a chrome finish. Again, the phone is all plastic, and you do have some chrome trimming going around the buttons and the camera. Now the battery cover is a textured material. It's not that rubberized material. It's more of just a standard hard plastic, but it is textured on the back. Now, one item worth showing you, because I haven't seen this design feature before, if you even want to call it a feature, whatever you want to call it. I was looking for the SD card port. Well, it just so happens to be right on top of the SIM card. So your SD card would slide right on top of your actual SIM card there. So there is no other slot on this phone for that. That's where that would go, in case you get this phone and you're wondering where that is. And then lastly, of course, you have the headphone jack at the bottom, and then there's your charge port. As far as the user interface on this phone, I'd say it's pretty straightforward. There's nothing particularly special about it other than, again, you have the floating buttons. It does come with the standard apps that you would expect on just about any other Android. There aren't any real extras, like I didn't see a flashlight or a radio app or anything like that. It's all pretty standard stuff that you get on this phone. There's all your Google apps, App Store. Of course, you will need to have a Google account to get into the App Store. And once you do that, you'll be able to download anything that's either free or paid. The one thing that I really do like about this phone, and I will say, is video, because the screen is large, and again, it kind of goes edge to edge, so it offers a really nice viewing area. It's really nice for watching videos. The sound quality is okay. It's not the best, but it's definitely not the worst. So overall, I would say this is a very good multimedia phone. The video is super clear, and the screen, right now this phone has an auto dimming feature, so you can adjust that. But so far that I've played with it, the screen is quite bright and clear. Videos look really good on this phone, and as you can see, these buttons kind of go away in this app. So when you're watching a video, it pretty much takes up the entire front of this phone, which I really like about it. Other than that, there's not a whole lot more to say about it. Everything else is pretty standard for Android 5. X, if you will. This one's 5.1. There is one thing that I kind of found annoying that you may need to get used to if you haven't used Android 5 like on this one, and I'll show you an example of that. Basically, these buttons at the bottom, depending on the app, will kind of hide, and sometimes it can be hard to figure out how to get those back. So on the camera one, for example, on the camera app, for example, remember, you don't have the physical buttons here to kind of navigate back. So what you have to do to get the buttons back is you have this little icon to go back. And then when you're editing images, for example, here's one that I took of my living room. So to edit it right now, see, there's no buttons on it whatsoever, so you kind of have to tap and swipe to kind of make these kind of have to figure out what to do to make the icons show up. As you see there, finally they showed up after tapping it on the screen up here. So that's about the only annoying thing that I find about these floating buttons on this Android version. And I really just noticed that on the camera app. The first time I used it, I didn't know how to kind of navigate around it, but once you figure it out, it's all right. I haven't seen any other apps where that's been a problem. In YouTube, as I showed, they kind of disappear when the video starts playing, and if you type the screen, then they'll show back up. So that's really about the only thing that I didn't like about, and I'm not even going to say not like, but that's about the only thing that kind of annoyed me on this phone. I think the last thing to note that may be an issue for some people, maybe not, depends on how you text, is that the portrait texting icons are nicely sized. I think most people will find that they're nicely sized, but then when you go to landscape, as you see it shrinks. You have all the space on the left and the right, so the buttons or the icons become extra small. So I think you might have a hard time texting when the phone is in landscape. If you like doing that, be aware of that. So I think that about wraps it up on this phone. Not a whole lot more left to say about it. I will say that I do like it. I think it's an excellent phone for the price. I think if I were to go for a mid-range option, at this price range, you're not going to find another one at 129 on Straight Talk that does as much as this phone and looks as nice as this phone. I think the main thing to note on the phone is, again, that it's Verizon. So I don't think there's a whole lot of Verizon phones right now. This new batch, they just offered a new batch, and this is one of two new phones that you can get for Straight Talk that'll be able to get you both LTE and Verizon coverage.